The story of Robin Hood and the Tinker. I like this one because this is kind of quite funny, and nobody dies. The Sheriff of Nottingham was really getting to the end of his tether with Robin Hood and the Merry Men. It must have been getting embarrassing, really, the way that they could simply run rings around his men, the way that they could so easily rob any rich monk, rich abbot, rich traveller who passed through Sherwood Forest. The king was becoming displeased. A warrant was issued for Robin Hood's arrest. But there is always a touch of the fae, a touch of the magical about Robin, as if he's always protected somehow. So, on one of the days when Robin had left the safety of the greenwood, had left the safety of Sherwood, and was walking to a village where there was an inn which he frequented from time to time. In Howard Pyle's Merry Adventures of Robin Hood, he names the inn as the Blue Boar. I don't think it's named in the early ballads, but the Blue Boar is quite possible. It still is a common pub name. So as Robin saw a stranger on the road, he struck up conversation with him, asking where he was going, because of course Robin needed to know who was out and about on the roads near Sherwood Forest. And the Tinker told him quite gladly, as people will if you ask them, that of course he was a mender of pots and pans. He had his tools with him in his bag, but he also carried a warrant for the arrest of the notorious outlaw Robin Hood, and this warrant was to be delivered to the Sheriff of Nottingham. It was a fine day, it was a hot summer's day, and of course a terrible thirst came over the two men, as often happens when you find yourself near a tavern or an inn. And so the two men called in to the inn, where of course Robin was well known. And so the two men drank their ale. But what the Tinker didn't know was that Robin had asked the innkeeper to add a measure of spirit to one of the pint pots, and that was the one that the Tinker was drinking. So as they drank pint for pint, it was the Tinker who became drunk, and it was the Tinker who fell asleep on that fine summer's day, so that Robin could take the warrant from the Tinker's bag and leave him there on the bench snoozing away. The conversation that the outlaw and the Tinker had had before the Tinker fell asleep was that Robin laughed and said he had heard a terrible story from a local town where two Tinkers had been placed in the stocks for drinking ale. The Tinker said, "Why is that a terrible story?" And Robin said, "The terrible thing is that it was only 2 tinkers who were placed in the stocks." Robin, of course, being as wily as a fox, managed to destroy the warrant so it never reached the Sheriff of Nottingham. And of course, later in the day, when the tinker woke up and find not only had his drinking companion disappeared, but that the innkeeper said the tinker owed him the money for every pint of ale. So the tinker carried on his way. And for the second time that day, he met Robin Hood on the road, but still didn't know who he was. But being angry at having been left in the inn and being out of pocket on an afternoon's drinking, the 2 men fell to fighting. But during the bout, Robin managed to pull his horn from his belt and blew the notes that let Little John know that he was in danger. So it wasn't long before Little John arrived at the scene to find both Robin Hood and the tinker bleeding a little. And it was then that Little John suggested that perhaps the tinker should come and join the merry men in the greenwood, where life was better than mending pots and pans and trudging endlessly along dusty roads. And so it was that a tinker, a man with skill, with metalwork, came to join the merry men, and the warrant didn't reach the Sheriff of Nottingham that day. The old stories are a bit different from the kind of stories that we're used to, but they are wonderful and they are lovely. So if you'd like to hear some more of them, please do subscribe to my channel. And I do hope to see you again soon.